So do you ever feel like you can't control yourself around food? You have 24/7 hunger. Once you grab a bite of chocolate, then it just turns into a 3,000 calorie binge. Well, you don't actually need more discipline to control these urges, and I'm gonna explain it in 3 reasons. So number 1, we need to remember that the reason why we binge eat is because it's a protective mechanism. It's actually a protective mechanism in response to famine. Our body thinks that there might be like famine going on because in our head we could see all the food in our cupboards, but our guts can't see what's going on the outside. It'll only sense what's coming in. Even if nothing is coming in, then it's gonna ramp up those hunger cues. It's gonna ramp up the hunger hormones. So ghrelin, which is the hunger hormone, is gonna go up, and leptin, which is the fullness hormone, is gonna go down, which is why you feel intense cravings to eat food, why you feel more hungry. We can relate this to the prehistoric eras. So back then, cavemen, cavewomen didn't have any food they can store up. They can't really like preserve food. They didn't have any also fridges. They didn't have any cupboards to store foods. So what they had in front of them was their meal. And if they didn't have any meal in front of them, then essentially they're just gonna starve. They can't have breakfast. They don't wake up to toast and butter and stuff like that, or nice cereal. They have to wake up in the morning, feel really hungry, and kickstart their adrenaline to find a mammoth, to kill that mammoth, and essentially have a binge eating episode. I say quote unquote binge eating episode because binge eating episode is often fueled by guilt and feeling like eating on autopilot. But essentially, binge eating was back then a very, very protective mechanism from starvation. So which is why when you have the intense urge to binge eat or have intense cravings for food, which is why sometimes when you have the intense urge to binge eat or have intense cravings, you might feel like you're in your fight or flight mode. You're kickstarting your adrenaline because that's exactly what's happening. So rather than seeing binge eating as a problem that we need to solve, which we can't solve because it's part of our internal mechanism, our survival response, we need to see binge eating as a symptom, and binge eating is a symptom of deprivation. You need to look around in your diet. Am I under eating? Am I not eating enough calories, which is why I'm feeling really hungry and having intense urge to binge eat? Or am I not having any psychological fulfillment from food? Because it's one thing to be full, it's another thing to be satisfied. You can just eat plain chicken breast and still have an urge to binge eat on like chocolates and cookies and brownies. So story time. I used to think I was like broken when I was struggling with binge eating because I thought, oh, like here I go again. I have no willpower. Binge eating is a problem. It's something I need to solve. And I was looking for all directions, looking at all avenues on the internet essentially to find out how I can like solve binge eating when it's not something that needs to be solved. It's your body telling you that you just need food, and as simple as it sounds, we always jump into food. I always kept on like having binge eating episodes in the evening after having my black coffee in the morning and just a plain sparkling drink or like a whole tub of very low calorie ice cream for lunch, and then have a massive binge eating episode in the evening. I thought like, oh, what's going on? I'm gonna jump onto another diet then because something's going wrong. Maybe I have no willpower. And if you're feeling like you have no willpower, then that's completely not true. Binge eating is a response to deprivation. But when we have a binge eating episode, when we finally give ourselves permission to eat, the next thing you want to do is to jump on the restrictive diet, which is starting this binging and restrict cycle again and again and again. So number 2, why you don't need more discipline, and I think I've already gone through this in the previous point, is essentially that binge eating is a symptom of deprivation. It's not a problem. So if it's a symptom, then how can we reduce these symptoms or solve this? So to solve the deprivation mindset, we have to first of all be aware of this one thing. So it's the binge restrict cycle. So the binge restrict cycle looks like this, and let me know if you in the comments if you relate to this. So you jump onto a restrictive diet, then you have an intense urge to binge eat, then you binge eat, and then you feel guilty, you have low self-esteem, and you feel like you're unworthy, and you feel like, oh, I can do better than this, and then you jump onto the restrictive diet again. So it's a never-ending cycle of restricting, binging. So in this binge restrict cycle, we have to remove one part of the equation to escape the cycle. So we need to give ourselves permission to eat regularly. We have to avoid the restrictive diet. And you might be thinking, okay, but I keep on binge eating even though I keep on eating regular meals. And the thing is, and you might be thinking, okay, Jonathan, but I'm eating regular meals even after a binge eating episode, but I still have binge eating urges. So here are 2 triggers which are triggering these binge eating urges. So number 1 is physical restriction. So are you feeling hungry? Are you under eating? Are you skipping meals? If you're not, then move on to number 2, which is avoiding mental restriction. So, are you avoiding the foods you crave? Cookies, brownies, cakes? And you might be thinking, okay, but like every time I eat these foods, cookies, brownies, and cakes, then it turns into a binge eating episode. But I want to ask you this. Have you been eating regular meals consistently and enough calories consistently? And are you introducing them as a dessert to feel a bit more safe around these foods? And this might seem really complicated and all these little things going on about binge eating, but if there's only one thing you can take from this video is to remember to understand that binge eating is a symptom of deprivation, and you need to put dieting on hold, because if you're binge eating, your body is sensing extreme famine, starvation. So putting dieting on hold, eating the foods you love, and being consistently full, maybe a 7 or 8 out of 10 full consistently, keyword once again I'll say consistently, then you'll dull down these urges of binge eating, and then you'll just have regular hunger cues and you won't have these intense urges to overeat. So the third reason why you don't actually need discipline around food, as simple as it sounds, is because why would you need discipline around food? Food is just food. It's not good, it's not bad, you don't have to stay on track, you don't have to stay off track. If you're putting dieting on hold and just listening to your internal cues, then you don't need this external cue of I'm gonna be so strong, I'm gonna be so hard, I need all the discipline, I'm gonna use all the motivation. That's all external cues, which can actually increase our urges to binge eat, because we're actually ignoring what our body really wants. So you don't need discipline around food. What you need is to find balance. So there's a difference between discipline and balance. Nutritional balance in a nutshell is about like having half your plate of veggies, a quarter of protein, and a quarter of carbs and fats. So that's a nutritionally balanced meal. So if you try to focus all of your meals around this simple plate rule, half of your plate of veggies, quarter protein, quarter carbs and fats. So try to implement all of these tips and see all of those urges just diminish. Your binge eating urges diminish, because remember, binge eating is only a symptom of deprivation, and if we're giving ourselves permission, then essentially binge eating's gone. If you want to learn more about binge eating recovery, check out my free resources in the link in my bio, free courses, free ebooks, and my binge eating recovery course. I'll see you in the next video.